Windbreaker, the series that has garnered my attention, and 12 other people. I'm joking, but it's kind of crazy this anime slash manga managed to surprise me how well it executes its story. I first found this series when I was scrolling around and the comic consistency is like its Tokyo Adventures, but cooler. So out of curiosity, I looked to see if they were right, and for me personally, I could confidently say it does a lot of things right. From the characters to the fights to how quickly I was invested in the main character's journey. So grab your school jersey, prep up your laces, and let's get started. The story on the production of this manga is interesting to learn, as while researching for this video, I came across an article containing an interview with the mangaka Ni Sentoru, or is it Satoru? I'm just gonna go with Sentoru since it reminds me of Gojo. Anyway, when roughly translated to English, Ni explains he was inspired to draw a manga as he read Weekly Shonen magazine, Not You, during his childhood. And like with any upcoming manga artist, he submitted his art in a contest, won, and achieved serialization with his first manga called The Secret Badminton Club. When it came time for him to come up with an idea for his second manga, he tried to do the same thing as before but was quickly stumped. And after he received some advice from an editor, he shifted his focus to creating stories about cool boys and creating something that is cool and satisfying to read no matter what. Thus, Windbreaker was born, released on Konashi's Magazine Pocket website on January 13, 2021, having 18 volumes published and an anime adaptation that was released earlier this spring with a second season on the way next year. Also, fun fact, when it came to the decision on who the main character would be, Nia initially wanted Yume Miya as the main character. However, during the writing process, he was unable to make progress past a certain point, so he decided that an outsider's perspective would be better for the story. Speaking of, it's time that I get to that. The first chapter introduces its main character, Sakura Haruka. Nah, it's too easy. We see Sakura entering a town, making his first impressions by saving a girl from some thugs and walking away afterwards. The girl, later named Kotoha Tachibana, offers him a meal as thanks, and it's quickly shown that Sakura is a bit of a tsundere. And the manga breaks one of its most common anime tropes by having Kotoha notice Sakura's very distinct hairstyle and eye color. Well, distinct by their universe. Nowadays, if you have that hairstyle in the real world, you'll still get weird looks, but people will shrug it off. Don't quote me on this. Sakura explains he came to this town to attend Furin High, a place that is every delinquent's wet dream, where there's no importance on social status, grades, and there's lots and lots of fighting. And Sakura is aiming for the top to become the strongest in the school as he feels it suits him perfectly. But he is confused by the sudden hospitality when he helped out someone, as normally he gets responded with hostility. However, Kotoha gives him a reality check by saying while she does acknowledge Sakura's physical strength, it's not enough to become the strongest, as she remarks that he's alone. This pisses Sakura off to leave, just in time to release some pent-up anger as the thugs from earlier came back with reinforcements. While he is upset at Kotoha's remark, he's mostly confused as he questions what does loneliness have to do with being the strongest. Because in his mind, the only way he has some value in life is by defeating the person in front of him, and if he takes it to the top and becomes the strongest, he believes he'll feel the most validated. He takes out his frustrations on the gang in front of him, but quickly gets sidetracked when one of the thugs holds Kotoha hostage. So he prioritizes rescuing and protecting her, leaving him vulnerable to being injured. Now physically and mentally quartered, Sakura is stuck on what to do before being saved by another student of Furin, who brought their own crew to deal with the rest of the thugs. Then the manga has a Spider-Man moment where the townies begin to cheer the Furin students, making Sakura perplexed by this. Kotoha chimes in, explaining the town once had a bad reputation for being a hangout for gang wars. However, 2 years ago, that changed when the students of Furin helped the town and made a sign at the front of the town's entrance saying, "From this point forward, those with malicious intent who hurt others or destroy their property, no matter who they are, they will be purged by the Windbreakers." Hell yeah, title drop! So the dub problem gets handled, and the town people come out to thank the Furin students, including Sakura, who is both overwhelmed and frustrated by the kindness of the townies, thinking this has to be a joke, right? Him and the Furin students are delinquents, but ever since he first stepped foot into this town, he's been treated with gratitude, and the students of Furin are regarded as heroes. Regardless, Kotoha reassures him that she sees him for who he is, and asks him to look at her and the townies as well, as he can grow to become someone who is needed. And at first it looks like Sakura responded with anger, but of course he was aiming his attack on the remaining thug, while verbally and secretly expressing that maybe, just maybe, this could be a place where he can belong. And that's chapter 1, and what a simple yet strong start to a story. I don't remember the last time I was disinvested in a manga at the very start. For example, Ron Deranged Detective Undead Unlocked, 2 mangas that I currently enjoy and love, did their best to intrigue me by their first chapter, and later chapters make me invested in their stories, usually by an introduction of an antagonist. And for this manga, I'll be covering the 3 major battle arcs of the story with the usual coverage that I do on this channel. Even though technically there's 4, but that last one is a war arc, and I plan on covering that in a separate video when it's wrapped up. Also, this is a no-brainer, but spoilers ahead for the upcoming arcs. And with that out of the way, let's move on to... If there's one way I would describe the manga's art style, I would say it takes a page out of Persona 5 by incorporating a lot of details and creating a unique sense of style, from the various facial details on each character to make them distinct, to the use of an ink brush style. There's a lot of interior designs Nii drew in to make the town feel livid, to the point at the end of some volumes or chapters, there's layouts of certain locations that include some personal details scattered in these areas, like the vibrant plants in Kotaha's cafe and the chill decor of Furin's High's rooftop. There's also text messages, conversations between the gang, food items along with descriptions. It's the little things that count. And even though it's one of the most basic things you can do for character design, I don't care. I love the character profiles. Just like the layouts, character profiles appear in some volumes, usually after new characters get introduced. They have this notebook style cutouts of the character that include basic info along with alternate outfits and accessories. For example, Kotaha's profile has a lot of stylish clothing, go figure, with mix and match tops and bottoms along with different earrings to go with it and the fitting shoes to top it off. Again, pretty basic stuff to do for a character, but if there's one thing you should know about me, I'm an absolute sucker when artists incorporate different outfits to the characters, as it can bring character to, well, the character. Plus, it's fun to see what sort of style one person has compared to another. Another thing that I've noticed is that Nii utilizes watercolor shading for sentimental moments, and rough ink brush and pencil strokes during tense moments. I like when these tense moments happen because it shows a very neat visual and gives me these urban vibes. I don't know how well I can describe it other than that, so let me know how you feel about the art in the comments below. Let's start with Sakura. Easily my favorite and the most relatable in this manga. He's determined, socially awkward, and has a vivid outlook on what it means to be strong. Even though he has the most common shouldn't go of becoming the very best like no one ever was, the circumstances and context are what make him stand out. From the very first chapter, you immediately know what this kid's deal is and how his story arc will play out. And while we don't know the full scope of his backstory, we know he didn't have the best life, as he was often judged and ostracized for his appearance. To the point he unsurprisingly starts to develop a standoffish demeanor as an defense mechanism to cope. I can relate to this on some level. When I was in high school, I was dealing with some personal stuff, so I often kept to myself and didn't interact with anyone unless I was forced to. Hilariously, I even spooked a group of girls in gym class one time by saying something, and they were genuinely surprised that I can actually speak. In spite of his tough persona, he's a good person and continues to try to help people out even when he expects them to respond to him with wariness. That's why he was so caught off guard by the kindness, gratitude, and even compliments of the townfolk. To the point where in another relatable moment in chapter 2, he gets stopped by several townspeople giving him gifts as thanks for helping out with the thug problem, and he just has the most blank and confused look on his face. Honestly, Nii summarizes the best way to describe Sakura. A stray cat. A neglected stray cat that stumbles its way into a loving family, with the cat being guarded at first, but with enough patience and kindness, the cat will grow to love them. So who are these individuals that will support Sakura in this journey? For starters, we have Kotaha. While she doesn't have that much screen time in the manga, she is important for Sakura as she was the first person to accept him. And throughout the manga, she acts like a big sister to him despite being the same age, offering him advice that he takes to heart. Next, there's Nirei Akihiko, a cheery and outspoken person who appears in Chapter 2 looking like Father Shiro. He gets acquainted with Sakura and is excited to tend Furin. However, unlike another Akihiko that I know well, Nirei doesn't have any combat skill at all. In fact, he gets frightened in the face of conflict and even admits to himself he feels pathetic when this happens. Yet, despite this, he still wants to be part of Furin and hopes of becoming a hero like the one who saved him from bullies in the past. And in the same chapter when confronted in a fight, he holds his ground long enough until Sakura comes by to deal with it. Sakura even told him he's not pathetic but cool in his own way regardless of Sakura's previous opinions on him. This results in Nirei taking a liking to Sakura and wants to collect data on him, because while Nirei lacks in physical strength, he makes up for it with brain power, as he's able to memorize the names and faces of all the students at Furin, and wants to help Sakura climb his way up to the top. Then we have Sugera Taiga and Kiryu Mitsuki. I'm putting these two together because they both have the same amount of screen time and don't do much compared to other characters. But what I do know is that Sugera is loud, very enthusiastic, sporty, but overall a well-meaning guy, and Kiryu is the opposite, being calm, gentle, but assertive when the situation calls for it, and treats the ladies well. Then we have Shugisha Kotaro. He's not really a supporting figure, but rather a rival to Sakura. While he's not very talkative, the one thing he's very vocal about is that you don't talk shit about Yuamiya. He's been an admirer of Furin and Yuamiya ever since middle school, and just like any rabid fangirl, the second he hears any disrespect towards Yuamiya, they're dead on the spot. Talking about taking the top, dead. Supposedly laughing at Yuamiya's speech, dead. Questioning Yuamiya's relationship to someone, dead. Intense devotion aside, he overall reminds me of a sweet, quiet little brother, and I like how in the current events of the manga, the evolution of his and Sakura's rivalry comes to a front, but that's another video to talk about. And to wrap up the list of characters for now, we have
Leonardo DiCaprio, yep.
Hilarious. But his name is actually Suyo Hayato, and if Nii describes Sakura as a cat, I wouldn't be surprised if he also describes Suyo as a fox because he acts like it. At a glance, he appears calm and friendly like Kiryu, but it's more of a mask to hide his true feelings. He's incredibly perceptive and will often study situations in order to react in the right way, both in conflicts and situations involving his classmates. He's also shown to be good at manipulation, making characters do favors for him. And I'll introduce the other characters as I go along in this video, so on to the next segment. The fights in this manga are good, pretty good. They're drawn pretty well, and the anime does an excellent job in bringing the action to life and showcasing their fighting styles, from Sakura's nimbleness to Suyo's martial arts talent. But it's one thing to have fights in a typical shonen manga, it's another to have fights that are interesting. There's a video made by Super Eyepatch Wolf that I'm sure most of you have already watched before that explains what makes a good fight scene. But to those who haven't, I'll put the link in the description below as I'm only going to summarize the main point in this video. In short terms, what makes a good, interesting fight scene is that it isn't just a fight between two opponents, but rather a conversation. And Windbreaker takes that ideology and runs with it. There's a scene earlier on in the manga where Yuamiya says that a fight is like a discussion. Your fists do the talking as they can easily convey primitive feelings with them, because sometimes it's not enough to verbally say what you're feeling. Sometimes you just need to smack something or someone in order to work through certain emotions. The manga does a good job at building up certain fights with arcs antagonists, correlating with some characters' ideals or arcs, and why they need to be taken out. Some antagonists are given more context that brings them into a sympathetic light, while others are just straight up bastards who need a good beating. And I think it's time we finally get to the arcs now, shall we? This arc is about Sakura getting into a conflict with a neighboring gang and the results that come from it. After Sakura gets settled in at Furin, he discovers Furin is less like Batman and more like Spider-Man, as the school does community service and patrolling for the town. Plus, it's 10 times more rewarding than real-life community service I had to take in school. Here we get properly introduced to Hiragi Toma, who appeared in the first chapter bending that metal bat and is really the school's mom, as he has to deal with keeping everybody in line, making him stressed most of the time. From making sure Sakura keeps his mouth shut about what happened to Kota because she's Umemiya's little sister, to practically babysitting Sakura and Sugishita, to even pulling Umemiya away before he embarrasses someone when they're trying to have a nice moment. He's so stressed to the point he regularly takes stomach medicine like they're Tic Tacs. Here's to him not getting an overdose. While on patrol, the group stumbles upon the border to another group's turf, that being Shisha Torrent's turf. And any turf border rules gets thrown out the window when they see someone running from Shisha Torrent members, and Sakura and Sugishita stop them in their tracks. We get introduced to another character, Jo Togami, Shisha Torrent's second command, and looks like Gito and Gojo's love child, even down to the creepy ass smile. We also get to see how Shisha Torrent operates and how they symbolize absolute creed of strength, although their definition of strength is far more literal, as Togami beats the shit out of the member who lost against Sakura and Sugishita, claiming that he's weak and denounces his status as a member of Shisha Torrent. And as if Sakura invading on their territory despite good intentions wasn't enough to spark a turf war, this cements it, as he mocks Shisha Torrent for being the symbol of strength despite bullying the weak, which pisses Togami off, and in response promises that soon, very soon, he'll beat him up before leaving the scene. Knowing that this problem has gotten a lot more bigger, Hiraki tells the kid who was running away earlier to come with them, as we get our first look into Umemiya, or his full name, Hajime Umemiya. He really embodies the golden big brother type, as he hears the middle schooler out when he explains he witnessed a shoplifting in progress and chased after the burglar, only to realize he was way in over his head a little too late. And while Umemiya doesn't appear to be all that intimidating as a leader, you already know that when things get serious, he's not afraid to throw hands. And things have gotten serious when Shisha Torrent's leader Choji Tomiyama bulldozes his way to Furin's entrance and demands Umemiya to a brawl. Umemiya heads down to try to de-escalate the situation, but his efforts are for naught as Togami and a sizable number of Shisha Torrent members show up and become a western holdup, as Sakura and the rest of the group join Umemiya and provoke some members of Shisha Torrent. Seeing the golden opportunity in his hands, Choji announced why not make a spectacle out of this. A one-on-one tournament where the matchups will be Choji versus Umemiya, Togami versus Sakura, the two members who started this whole mess, against Sugishita and Suo respectively, and Hiragi versus Seiko, who appear to have history with one another. Now that the matchups have been set, it's time to talk about the fight themselves. The first two matchups don't really have much to say, as Sugishita's fight went pretty quickly, you can say. And Suo's fight wasn't even a fight, and more like a cat playing with its food until it got bored. So what we have left are Hiragi, Sako, Sakura Togami, and Choji Umemiya. Starting with Higuri Sako, we get the backstory on how they met, and surprise surprise, they were childhood friends, with Higuri saving Sako from some bullies. Sako begs Higuri to teach him how to fight, and ever since then has been admiring him and wanting to keep following him. However, when the time came for Higuri to graduate middle school and attend Furin, he suggested to Sako that maybe he shouldn't keep following him, because he had already decided to follow Umemiya and knew he couldn't live up to Sako's expectations of taking the top of Furin. So he thought he was doing Sako a favor by letting him go, in hopes he can achieve his own goals. Instead, Sako interpreted this as Higuri abandoning him and resenting him, working his way on becoming stronger until eventually getting recruited by Shisha Torrent. Which leads us to the present, where this fight is Sako's chance to prove to Higuri he's gotten stronger, and wants Higuri to regret leaving him. And at first, he seems to have the advantage until it quickly gets told that Higuri isn't just an ordinary senior. He's one of the 4 heavenly generals or kings of Furin, with the title of Vaishnavarna, or its other name Bishamadin, the god of war. Yeah, you can see where this is going, but Hiragi does acknowledge that Sako's current behavior may be his fault and apologizes before delivering a severe blow to him. And before Sako passes out, he admits he knew Higuri's intentions back then. However, he didn't want him to say that, but rather, despite Higuri following someone else, to tell Sako to keep following him. To the surprise of nobody, Higuri won, and we're finally getting to what is arguably the most interesting fight scene in this arc, Sakura versus Togami. Because this fight is more of a clash of ideals with both combatants more than eager to get started. Togami begins to express his disgust with Sakura as he believes Sakura is only demeaning them because he's inferior, and without that image, he's all alone. This statement personally irks Sakura as Togami is acting no better than the ones who antagonized him in the past. With this, along with the promise he begrudgingly made the night before to the middle schooler, Sakura is more determined than ever to win this fight as he says he can't afford to lose this. After some flurry of blows, the fight starts to shift when once again Sakura calls out on Togami's hypocrisy of being the creative strength when they bully and disown their members while chasing after middle schoolers. The latter makes Togami paused and confused for a moment before quickly putting two to two together. In a surprising turn of events, he puts the fight on hold, approaches the two members responsible for this mess, beats them, and casually walks back to the fight. But this affected Togami more than he lets on, to the point Sakura noticed and became intrigued by Togami while asking why isn't Togami taking this seriously anymore. And it's at this moment we get the full story of Shishitori and why it's the way it is. The flashback shows Togami and Choji while they were first starting out as Shishitori, quickly rising through the ranks, but are happy because they believe in the creative strength, where you don't bow to nobody, swear that you will carry out your own way, and that strength will grant you freedom. The more you have, the more free you are. And Choji was aiming for the top, thinking he'll be the most free. Togami didn't care about that and was rather content with just having fun, albeit still supporting Choji in his quest, thinking Shishitori would even be better with Choji on top. He was never more wrong. Choji feels he's not having fun anymore and thinks everyone on the team should be as strong as him now, with him immediately putting his plan into action when he heard one of the members got hurt. He proceeds to hurt the already wounded member more and does the same thing we saw Togami did when we first met him. Togami understandably is upset by this, but Choji stands by his decision and tells Togami if he doesn't like the way he does things, he can leave. And Togami, out of fear of leaving or losing the only friend he has, decides to take the villainous role of thinning out their weak members so that Choji doesn't have to do it himself and he continues to try to have fun. While his heart was in the right place, this decision is a double-edged sword, as not only does this hurt him inside, but hurts Shishitori in the long run. Even Higuri noticed this and tried to warn Togami before his fight with Sakura what will happen if he continues to do this. Now that I think about it, he's basically Atlas, carrying Shishitori on his shoulders for Choji's sake in the hopes of keeping the status quo and that one day Choji will feel enjoyment from a fight again. But now with the added information of why Furin invaded their turf in the first place, doubt begins to creep inside his mind, as he has a moral dilemma about the future of Shishitori before noticing what Higuri was talking about. Sakura asks what he wants to do and Togami gives him an honest answer, something he probably hasn't done for a while, and Sakura continues his interest in Togami by galling him to continue the fight and giving a much needed wake-up call when he reminds him of what true strength really means to him. After this, Togami has a change of heart and calls Sakura by his name before continuing the fight, except this time it's more like a sparring match with your bro and you're having fun with it. And to wrap up this fight, they do one last punch with Sakura successfully hitting Togami, and Togami silently thanking Sakura for reminding him of what he should have done and changing his views. Shishitori members are floored that Togami lost, however Choji doesn't care as he's more focused on his fight with Umamiya. Togami tries to persuade Choji that this whole fight was a misunderstanding, but Choji is too far gone to listen and kicks him out of the way, causing Sakura to almost hit him in retaliation if it wasn't for Umamiya stopping him. He congratulates Sakura for talking things out with Togami and tells him to leave Choji to him as it's his turn to talk with him. Now let's talk about this lovely ball of sunshine. Choji as a character has a few parallels with Sakura. They both strive to become at the top of their hierarchy, and both have the belief that being the strongest will have the biggest validation in life. However, once Choji becomes the leader, the parallels stop, and Choji becomes a cautionary tale for Sakura, as the thing he strived for became empty to him, leaving him lost and desperate to try and feel anything, which leads him to become jealous of Umamiya's lifestyle despite being the leader, and suddenly all of his actions are given new context as Choji's insistence to fight Umamiya starts to become more and more like a cry for help. He even starts to have a mental breakdown during the fight when Umamiya rightfully berates him for being an irresponsible leader. Can we get a therapist for this child, please? Him too. They're gonna need it. And just like how Sakura gave Togami's wake-up call by reminding him of his past, Umamiya did the same by reminding him of an encounter between Shizutora and Furin in the past, when Choji wasn't the leader and carried a lot of weight and vibrancy on his shoulders with a good old headbutt. Choji awakes and has a heart-to-heart with Togami, who apologizes for distancing the gang from him and leaving him alone, and Choji apologizes to Togami and the gang for what he has done to them, while also thanking Togami for everything that he has done. Choji tries to make amends by handing over leadership to Umamiya, but unsurprisingly, Umamiya declines and decides to become friends instead. After the fight, he, Togami, and the Furin members host a picnic, where Choji asks Umamiya how he's able to stay happy despite being the leader. Umamiya explains that he indulges in gatherings where everyone enjoys themselves, and that being at the top of Furin has nothing to do with hanging out with friends. He just had a goal he wanted to achieve, have people behind him supporting his goal. In the end, they chose and helped him to become a leader. After all, you can't become a leader on your own, right? And this statement calls out Sakura as he is having his own wake-up call, as what Koto has said to him at the beginning finally clicks. And after saying their farewells to Shizutora and having a one-on-one discussion with Umamiya, Sakura reveals his initial intentions of coming to this town, but now realizes it's impossible for him because nobody will accept him. Although he doesn't realize it, he has people like Nirei and Suo who accept him, and Umamiya gives him some advice that the first step of accepting somebody is to first look at them. If he manages to do that, he will want to know and understand them. And this advice comes into play when, after getting acquainted with Sugura and Kiryu, it was time for grade 1 to choose their grade captain, and to no surprise, Sakura gets chosen. Normally, Sakura will jump at the chance to accept this position, but after the conversation with Umamiya, he's hesitant, thinking he's no better than Choji. But majority rules and no one else seems to want the position, so he's kinda stuck with it. Luckily, there is someone who's going to help him out, and his name is Ren Kanji, my second favorite character. Kanji is usually a quiet person, listening to music and eating lollipops while his vice captains do all the talking. But like with Sakura, it's more of a front to hide his quick-to-anger personality, which often fuels the rumors of him being violent and unpredictable. But he's shown to have a calm and collective side to him when he, Sakura, Suo, and Nirei help an old lady look for a cat. After everything gets settled, Sakura asks Kanji what he wants to do because since he's a leader, there has to be some goal he wants to achieve, right? But Kanji bluntly tells him it's not that deep, bro, and reveals he was chosen as grade captain similar to how Sakura was chosen. It explains he's well aware of his weaknesses and depends on his vice captains to support him, and vice versa. So in order to live up to their expectations, he's just doing the best he can. You don't always have to have a huge goal in mind. Sometimes just being dependable is enough for some people. So even though he still doesn't know what he's supposed to do, he accepts being great captain, with Nirei and Suo being vice captains, with Nirei handling memorization and Suo handling negotiations, which is perfect for him. After some encouragement from Umamiya, Sakura deals with his very first conflict as great captain, and it comes in the form of a gang named Keel. Keel is the second antagonist group in this next arc, and they appeared during Sakura's class patrol, seemingly looking for someone before leaving when they couldn't find them, and immediately after, the students found one of their classmates heavily injured named Anzai, who in a previous chapter was shown to have similar injuries. Anzai tries to deflect any questions the group asks, but Sakura could smell the BS from here, and Suo asks if there's any connection between him and Keel, which hits the nail on the head, but Anzai refused to say anything despite being very obvious. Nirei wants to go ahead and help him, but Sakura remarks that even though this is a personal problem, Anzai has to willingly want Furin to help him. However, Nirei counteracts that Anzai is still someone from their class, so even if it's not much, there has to be a way to help, which does compel Sakura to go and investigate. That leads him to find Tsuchiya, Anzai's childhood friend. She explains she, Anzai, and another person named Nagato all hung out as kids, but went their separate ways after junior high. When she reunited with Anzai one day, she thought he got an injury because of a fight. However, Anzai tells her he was pursuing a Kill member who robbed someone. When he pulled down the hood, it was shown to be Nagato, and Anzai said that he'll drag Nagato back in order to talk it out, but we already know how that went. After getting the info he needs, he promised Tsuchiya he'll bring Nagato back and confronts Anzai, who receives a brutal image of Nagato beaten up and a threatening message from Kiel telling him to meet up at an old shipyard, their hideout. Anzai tries to argue that this is his problem, but Sakura already promised Tsuchiya, plus the rest of the class sees him as a friend, so like it or not, this is already personal. And so Sakura leads his class to Kiel's hideout, walking a la Arlong Park style. When they get there, Kiel is already prepared to defend themselves and surrounds the class, making Sakura and the class work their way to form a path for Anzai to the top of the staircase. But Anzai gets knocked out before he makes it, and the situation starts to become worse when 5 VIP members join in the fight, causing Sakura and the main cast to stop in their tracks and deal with the VIPs, resulting in the rest of Kiel to overwhelm Furin. Nirei tries to join in the fight in order to do something, but yeah, you already know what happens next. Luckily, there is a light at the end of this tunnel in the form of Kanji and his vice captains, who knew they would be here thanks to Nirei texting them earlier. They tell the others to focus on the opponent right in front of them, while Kanji goes to deal with the Kill leader. In his efforts to appear strong, Sakura tries to persuade Kanji to let him take on the leader, and Kanji gives him a reality check by saying he's so distracted with trying to take down the leader that he's not even paying attention and can't even help or save his own classmates when they need him. So Kanji tells him it's okay to let someone else do it and focus on what he needs to do. This causes Sakura to snap out of it and easily deal with the VIP as well as the rest of the cast, especially Suo, who is pretty pissed about what happened to Nirei, but Sakura stops him before he goes even further. Kanji deals with the Kill leader, who tries to appeal to Kanji's violent tendencies by pulling the "we're not so different, you and I," but Kanji is having none of it, even if he agrees he's no hero. Although he is annoyed he couldn't give the leader the full 10 punches to the face he promised. So, victory? I mean, the rest of Kiel are defeated, and Anzai and Nagato have a heart-to-heart conversation when it gets revealed that Nagato was tricked and forced into the gang. I would call this a happy ending, but you guys already know. Despite the victory, Sakura is frustrated with himself and takes it out on his class by asking why aren't they upset with him. It's because of his narrow-mindedness and thinking he's got this covered that resulted in him being distracted, Nirei and his other classmates getting hurt, and needing backup from their seniors. However, the class reassures him that they're all frustrated with the results too. Nirei is frustrated for not being strong enough to help, Suo is frustrated that his anger got the better of him, and even Sugishita is frustrated with himself despite not expressing it very well. They try to comfort Sakura that they'll learn from this experience and stand up together, but it doesn't make Sakura feel any better. And after a couple of days, he doesn't show up at school, making Nirei to believe he's sick. So Suo and Nirei goes to his house and check up on him. This is where we see Sakura's house for the first time, and while the anime gave us a glimpse of his room in the first episode, it's no surprise that this is what his place looks like. But it is a surprise for Nirei, who becomes aware of Sakura's loneliness and wants Sakura to depend on him more. However, Suo gently points out that kindness and friendship is something that is foreign to Sakura and doesn't have the mental capacity to navigate it through it yet. And after a home visit and some advice from Kotoha, Sakura understands he can only do so much as a person, and it's okay to depend on people to help him, but doesn't understand how, so he goes to the one person who can help him, Kanji. I love how this is Sakura's first gut reaction when it comes to seeking someone for help. Kanji really is starting to become Sakura's mentor. He takes Sakura to the school's rooftop and explains in a scene that hits a little too close to home for me that despite knowing he can't do everything himself and needs help from others, he can't do it because he's scared. Earlier in the manga, when Sakura accepts his position as grade captain, Kotoha points out something to him he has never noticed until now. He's never called anyone by their name. While this does seem inconsequential at first, it's our first look into Sakura's character development. Because as the great Mike Wazowski once said,
"You name it, you start getting attached to it."
And attachment is something Sakura is afraid of because as much as he gaslights himself into thinking he's a strong, independent person, he needs nobody, he's starting to like Furin and the people in it. Otherwise, he wouldn't freeze up at the sight of Nirei and the other classmates being hurt. But because he's been on metaphorical tightrope for so long, he's scared of the risk of being vulnerable to others because in his mind, that will be seen as weak and causing everyone to reject and leave him. To Kanji and everyone else, it's blatantly obvious Sakura's scared, and Kanji expresses that Sakura is letting his insecurities get the better of him, and tells him instead of drowning in his own self-doubt, trust in his classmates based on what he can see. Which leads to this beautiful moment where Sakura heads to his class and, for the first time, leaps off of his metaphorical robe and expresses his feelings. He apologizes for taking his frustrations out on them and admits he's a screw-up. While the class responds in typical dogpiling fashion, they tell him there's no need for apologies as they can plainly see what type of person he is and accept him for who he is. They know it's hard for him to open up, but he can take it one step at a time. So to make him feel better and learn more about each other, Anzai demands they go out to eat, and while they're there, everyone except Suo tell each other about what makes them lame, leading into another sweet moment where Sakura laughs, happy that he's found a place where he can belong. But as we all know, this moment won't last forever, as trouble is already brewing when someone who is disguised as a Kill member appears, seemingly having knowledge of Furin and how they've gotten weaker before discarding the Kill uniform and leaving, displaying their tattoos and setting up for the next arc. This arc has less to do with Sakura and more about these two new groups and a brand new character, who is my third favorite character in this manga. Their name is Tsubaki and is one of the four heavenly kings like Hiragi. They're a very outspoken and confident person, often quick to dote on others and take on an older sibling role when talking to their juniors. And despite looking feminine, Tsubaki has a male-sounding voice, so even though the manga uses masculine pronouns for them, Tsubaki can be heavily interpreted as transcoded. Their backstory also contributes to this. Growing up, Tsubaki ignored their interest in makeup and fashion in order to fit in with their classmates. It wasn't until after one day while walking home, they found an earring that belonged to an old woman whose husband was looking for it. He invites them to their house and gives them a treat as thanks, and ever since then, they go to the old couple's house to visit. On one such visit, they try to put the old woman's lipstick on, and instead of getting angry with them, the woman was pretty chilled and helped them put the makeup on, with the husband commenting how pretty they look. Tsubaki breaks down crying, expressing their wish to be normal, but the old couple express their love and respect for Tsubaki regardless of their interest and appearance, that Tsubaki begins to embrace their true self. 10 years later, when the wife passes and the husband is depressed, Tsubaki does everything they can to help him, and even invites Sakura, Nirei, and Suo on a platonic date to see if they can help them pick up his spirits, resulting in a heartwarming scene. And so to thank Sakura and Ko for helping them, they invited them to the red light district. This is gonna be fun. Okay, it's not what you think. Tsubaki just works there at one of the bars as a dancer, and that's the reason they invited them here. Not even two pages have passed after entering the district, they stumble into trouble when a young girl drops in on them while falling. She was previously chased by some figures and they finally caught up to her. Noticing the obvious threat, all three boys work together to protect the girl. Yes, I said all three, because after seeing the extent of Sakura's loneliness and when he reveals his feelings in front of the class, Nirei reaches his limit of feeling pathetic and his resolve to help Sakura grows even stronger. He wants to be at Sakura's side when he gets to the top, so he asks Suo to teach him how to fight. Suo responds instead of teaching him how to fight, he'll teach him how to protect himself by turning into a pill bug to catch them off guard. I like that Nii chose to do this because it keeps the story realistic and doesn't automatically turn Nirei into an able fighter just yet. After dealing with the gang and getting into a misunderstanding, we get introduced to two more characters, the rescue girl named Shizuka Narita and her bodyguard / love interest named Kanji Nakamura. I find it funny that this manga has two characters with kanji in their names, so to avoid confusion on my part, I'll just call him Nakamura from now on. Anyway, Nakamura is the chairman of Ropo Ichiza, a self-employment group in the Red Light District, who work hard to protect the street and ensure that everyone can enjoy themselves without worry, which includes bodyguarding, being mediators, and overall helping the town. Basically, they're like the Furin of the red light district, and apparently they had bad history with Furin, but they're all chill now as coincidentally Tsubaki works in the same bar as Shizuka, so they all head to the bar and celebrate. But everyone agrees not to tell Tsubaki because Tsubaki treats Shizuka as a little sister and Tsubaki will respond similar to how Umamiya will respond if Kotoha got hurt. Unfortunately, that promise doesn't get to last as someone announces a group is causing a ruckus on the streets, so Nakamura tasks Tsubaki and their vice captains to stay behind and guard Shizuka while he, Sakura, and Ko go out to handle the mob. When they get there, we see just how strong Nakamura is as he and the rest of Robo Ichiza lay waste to a good chunk of the mob. But this fight is only beginning as the main group shows up called Gravel. Gravel is a mercenary group that comes from the Tsubai district, which is known for being a seedy place where the economy is terrible and crime is an everyday occurrence. So, basically Detroit. And it's revealed Shizuka came from this district but ran away when someone was attempting to buy her, so Gravel was hired after the previous failed attempt to retrieve her. But like it or not, Gravel's background does bring depth to the antagonist group and its leader, Tsuhei Susuri, whose backstory tells a sad, simple tale of a kid forced to grow up and take matters into his own hands by assembling a team to take high-paying jobs in order to make ends meet. Shizuka manages to get past Tsubaki by faking to go to the restroom, and the manga seems to be heading to the damsel offers themselves up to save the ones they love trope, but luckily they don't do that. Instead, Nira reminds her of the love everyone has for her and how it will be wasted if she goes with them, and Tsubaki asks her if this is what she really wants to do, to which of course she declines and would rather stay with everyone. Tsubaki tasks the boys to look after Shizuka while they handle with Susuri personally. And from the look at their face, this fight is going to be good. The fight starts pretty well with each fighter on equal footing, going for blow, but Tsubaki's empathic nature starts to recognize Susuri's pain after wrongfully accusing of him of being jealous of Shizuka and wants to know more about him. They're well aware that they don't understand what he's been through, but understand the feeling of suffering. So after they defeat him, they extend him a hand of kindness to show there's a different path he can take. And even Nakamura offers him and his group job positions after Susuri's reluctance to leave his gang behind. And after a genuine heartfelt moment that I cannot put into words between Tsubaki and Shizuka, the only thing left to do is have Susuri talk to the person who requested them about canceling the request. But fortunately, or unfortunately in this instance, the requester is already there, and it's the same person who showed up in the aftermath of the Kill arc. This is Yamato Endo, and not only was he the one behind everything with Gravel and Kill, but he's a former Furin student from Tsubaki's generation, which explains Tsubaki's hostile reaction. He was mostly there to watch things from the sidelines and is interested in Sakura from what he saw during the Kill arc. He believes Sakura doesn't belong at Furin, thinking he's wasting his talents and is better suited being alone. I'm not kidding when I say the way Yamato was dealt with is that he simply was amused by Susuri groveling on the ground and just left, promising that he'll play with Furin later. This threat causes Tsubaki to message Umamiya about what happened, and he issues an emergency meeting with the Four Kings to inform Sakura and Ko about the shadows Furin left behind. To the public, the story of how Umamiya reformed Furin is a story about a group of underdogs fighting and making allies of their defeated foes, spreading their influence, working their way up to the hierarchy, and defeating Yamato and his gang as they pose as the final wall in uniting Furin. However, like with any real story, there are bound to be exaggerated parts or stretched truths. And in this case, not only Umamiya and the Four Kings struggled in fighting back against Yamato and his gang, thus creating a stalemate where neither side had won, but the scary part is Yamato and his gang left Furin of their own free will. Once they saw how orderly Furin has become, they simply left out of boredom. And Umamiya theorizes that since Yamato is becoming interested in Furin again, he'll take back the school and turn it into the way that it was 2 years ago. And to add more fuel to this pressing matter, there is one person in Yamato's gang that is not only stronger than him, but Umamiya never won against, and his name is Chika Takashi. This is where I'm gonna stop for now, but I do want to mention something real quick. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned how Nii originally wanted Umamiya to be the main character but changed his mind during production. While I do agree on that point, I wouldn't mind if he makes a spin-off prequel manga like The Adventures of Sinbad. Because before the war arc starts, we get a 4-parter involving Umamiya and his backstory, from his tragic beginnings of losing his parents and unborn sibling in an accident, to coming to terms with his grief and finding a new purpose in life, to showing how he met Higuri and how he came up with his plan of bridging both the town and Fruin into a community. It left so much to be explored, so check out chapters 93 through 97 if you're interested, although be warned about some sensitive subject matter. Overall, Windbreaker is a fast, action-paced manga with a lot of heart. I was honestly surprised how genuine the dialogue between characters was. I highly recommend this manga to those who want to read something cool, or watch the anime as it's an equally worthwhile watch. Now we play the waiting game until the manga wraps up its war arc, which considering the latest news from Ni, it's gonna be a while. Oh well, I'll have plenty of manga to cover until then, so let me know what your thoughts are about the manga. Thanks for watching everyone! Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell for more of my manga related content. I hope you have a decent day and I'll see you next time. Bye!
Take a deep breath,